I moved into what I thought was a quiet suburban neighborhood until I met Karen. She's the kind of woman who acts like she owns the entire block, with her fake HOA rules and wannabe cops patrolling like they run the place. Too bad she didn't know who she was dealing with. I'm an FBI agent who doesn't take threats lightly. But what happened next? Let's just say things got way more intense than she expected. Before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from today. I woke up to a loud pounding on my door, so fierce my windows seemed to shake. Still groggy, I rushed to the front hall, thinking someone might be in trouble. Through the peephole, I saw two people in matching uniforms with bold letters reading, HOA, police. Their badges looked cheap, like party store props, but they stood tall, glaring with stern faces. My pulse quickened more than it should at dawn. I cracked the door open and said, "Can I help you?" The taller officer, a man with a sharp jaw, pointed at me. "We're here on official business," he stated. "Your property has violations, and we need to inspect your garage." I felt a wave of irritation. What violations? There's nothing in my garage that breaks any rules. The shorter officer, a woman with sharp eyes, snapped, "Don't make this difficult. We have authority from the HOA. I noticed they didn't mention warrants or real police involvement." Keeping calm, I said, "I'm an FBI agent. If you have real cause, show me proper documents." The tall one smirked. "Being FBI doesn't exempt you from neighborhood rules." Then I saw movement behind them. Karen, my neighbor, peered over their shoulders with a smug grin. She was always loud and pushy, griping about every tiny thing on our block. I knew instantly she was behind this, and my gut twisted with unease. Stepping onto my porch, I kept my voice steady. "Karen, what's this about?" She raised her chin. "Just ensuring rules are followed," she said, her tone dripping with fake sweetness. "You can't claim special treatment because of your job." The fake officers nodded. "We have reports of odd activity in your garage," said the woman. I gave a tense laugh. "Odd activity? Like what?" Karen shrugged. "I heard noises late at night. Could be anything. Maybe you're hiding something dangerous." My jaw tightened. "That's absurd, and you know it. If there's a real issue, I'll cooperate, but this is harassment." The tall officer pulled out a paper that looked like a typed form. No seal, no signature, just words claiming I was under HOA investigation. I stayed calm. "That's not an official document. You have no right to enter my home." Karen sighed dramatically. "You sure you want to argue? I can add your defiance to the violation list." I glared at her. "Since when does the HOA have its own police? I've lived here long enough to know we only have volunteers checking yards and paint colors." The shorter officer flashed a plastic-looking badge in my face. "We have new authority now. Step aside." I shook my head. "No. Unless you return with real law enforcement and a valid warrant, you're not coming in." The man stepped forward. "Don't test us." My anger spiked, but I kept it in check. As an FBI agent, I knew better than to start a fight on my porch. Instead, I crossed my arms. "If you try to enter, you'll face charges." Karen smirked again. "You can't threaten us. Everyone here knows you think you're above the rules." Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket. The screen showed my boss's name, and my stomach sank. I'd never gotten a call from him this early. "One moment," I told the fake officers. Stepping back inside, the tall one shouted, "We're not done here." Ignoring him, I answered. My boss's voice was tense. "Get to the office now. We have a problem." My heart dropped. "Is this about a complaint against me?" A pause. "I'll explain in person." I hung up and returned to the door. The fake cops and Karen still stood there, towering like they owned the place. "I have to go," I said. "I'll deal with this later." The woman officer shook her head. "If you leave, we'll mark you uncooperative." Karen stepped closer, her gaze icy. "You want your neighbors to see you run." I sighed. "Karen, this is ridiculous. You know you can't arrest me." She tilted her head. "I'm not arresting you. They are, and I'm not stopping them." The male officer raised plastic zip ties, as if to cuff me. I reminded myself to stay cool. "Put those down. Impersonating an officer is a crime. You know that, right?" The woman grabbed her radio, but I doubted it connected to any real dispatch. Karen clucked her tongue. "You might want to listen. They can write you up." My jaw clenched. A fake citation means nothing. The tall man waved the zip ties in my face. "Want to find out if these are fake too?" I realized they were pushing me to react rashly. It was a setup. I took a slow breath. "Look, I'm leaving for an urgent matter at my real job. You need to leave my property." Karen shrugged. "We'll be watching. The HOA has eyes." I barked a laugh. "The real HOA might, but you sure aren't it." The male officer's lips thinned. "We'll give you one last warning." He glanced at Karen, who nodded. "If you don't comply, we'll recommend disciplinary action." I glared. "Recommend it to whoever you want. Now get off my porch." They backed away, but the woman snapped a photo of me with her phone. Karen gave a mocking smile. Smile for the records. My stomach churned. I waited until they left my lawn, then slammed the door. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my boss. "Hurry." My body felt like a coiled spring. This was the last thing I needed, especially with something serious at work. Karen's grin lingered in my mind. It took 10 minutes to calm down before I grabbed my keys and headed out. The fake cruiser sat at the street's end, lights off. Karen's car was gone, likely spreading her twisted story to neighbors. I drove off, trying to steady my breathing. My boss's tone had sounded dire, rattling me more than Karen's antics. As I hit the main road, I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting the HOA cruiser to tail me, but it didn't. Still, I felt trapped between two nightmares, fake cops at home and a looming crisis at work. I reached the FBI field office and hurried inside. My boss stood in the hallway, looking tense. "You took your time," he snapped, waving me into his office. I shut the door, heart in my throat. He demanded to know why local authorities complained about my threatening behavior. I explained the fake officers, their cheap badges, and Karen's role. He stared for a long moment. "We have a problem," he said. "Higher-ups flagged this. There's talk of misconduct, and I can't shield you if it escalates." My stomach dropped. "I'm innocent," I insisted. "Someone's framing me, trying to push me out." He rubbed his eyes. "I don't care if they're real cops or not. There's paperwork claiming you resisted a lawful inspection. It's nonsense, but it's on my desk." Anger flushed my neck. "Karen must have sent it. She's got a crazy plan," he sighed. "Like I said, I can't do much if complaints keep coming. Keep your cool, prove they're fake. Otherwise, you'll face an internal review." Panic flared, but I nodded, knowing no quick fix existed. As I left his office, my phone buzzed. A text from a blocked number. "Better watch your step. We know who you are." I nearly crushed my phone in my hand. These people were trying to ruin my life, making it look official. I trudged through the day, haunted by the morning clash and the fear that Karen had taken her petty rules to a dangerous level. Even coworkers gave me odd looks, like they'd heard rumors. Before leaving, an agent named Davis pulled me aside in the break room. "Got a second?" he asked quietly. "Sure," I said. He glanced around. "I overheard you're on thin ice. Watch your back." My chest tightened. "You mean here, or in my neighborhood?" Davis frowned. "Both maybe? And keep an eye on that Karen lady. She's bragging about getting you in trouble." By the time I left, the sun was low. I drove home, nerves frayed, wondering if the fake officers would be back. Sure enough, a strange SUV parked near my house, its tinted windows chilling me. I parked, eyed the SUV, but no one emerged. I hurried inside, locked the door, and drew the curtains. My phone dinged with an email from Internal Affairs, asking about my morning altercation with the local security detail. I dropped onto my sofa, dazed. Karen had linked her fake patrol to real authorities, and now my job was at risk. Though the fake officers left earlier, they still lurked in the neighborhood, and the bureau pressed me for answers. With Karen causing trouble at every turn, the storm was growing, and I didn't know how far her scheme reached. I got home later and saw the fake HOA cruiser idling at the street's end. My pulse raced as I parked, but I acted normal. Inside, I peeked through the blinds. The car stayed put, daring me to confront it again. I checked my messages, hoping for a reply from the real HOA or a sign Karen's hoax was crumbling. Instead, I found a bounced email and a threatening voicemail. A muffled voice warned, "We know you're digging. Back off, or it gets worse." That line told me Karen wasn't alone. The next day, I called the official HOA number from an old newsletter, but it went to a recorded message about technical issues. My urgent email about possible impersonation bounced back as undeliverable. The neighborhood website showed outdated info, no mention of new security. Karen had blocked every communication channel, leaving me without recourse. I reached out to a local police contact, Alvarez, a no-nonsense officer who sometimes shared intel with the bureau. Over the phone, I explained the fake badges, bogus citations, and Karen's role. Alvarez sounded skeptical but promised to check the HOA vehicle's license plate. "If it's a private security firm," he said, "they can't legally act as law enforcement." As I waited for his call back, tension in the neighborhood grew. Neighbors I barely knew whispered behind fences, eyeing me like I was the villain. One morning, Tamara, one of the few still talking to me, knocked on my door, pale and frantic. "They left this on my porch," she said, holding a notice demanding a fine for unapproved paint colors. I skimmed it, recognizing the fake language used against me, threatening eviction if she didn't pay. She looked ready to cry. I called the HOA, but the line was dead. "Is Karen allowed to do this?" My anger flared. "No, it's a scam. Don't pay. I'll figure it out." She shrugged, fear in her eyes. "I can't risk losing my home. If no one stops them, maybe it's real." Work at the FBI became a minefield. My boss called me in, voice tight. "I'm getting more reports of your conflicts with local authorities," he said, tapping a folder. "Care to explain?" I detailed Karen's fake cops and showed the worthless citations, but he frowned. "If they're private security, I can't make this vanish. Higher-ups are asking questions, and they're not pleased." I felt cornered. Even if the HOA police were fake, their complaints made me a liability. I worried daily about an email or call saying I was under investigation. One evening, I saw Karen in her driveway, arms folded, watching me pull in. I marched up to her, ignoring my nervous stomach. "We need to talk," I said. She raised an eyebrow. Go ahead. I kept my tone cool. You're setting fake officers on me and targeting neighbors. Why? She flashed a thin smile. It's not personal. People forget we have standards. I'm enforcing them. I clenched my fists. By scaring everyone? That's not how this works. She shrugged. They don't seem scared. They pay fines. Life goes on. My anger simmered. What's your endgame? She tilted her head, feigning confusion. Endgame. I'm cleaning up the neighborhood. You're the one not cooperating. A faux cop strode over, giving me a stern look. Move along, he ordered. My jaw tightened. You have no legal authority. He lifted a flimsy badge and smirked. We're all the authority we need. I stepped back, not wanting to give them an excuse to file another complaint. Karen shot a smug glance before they walked off, leaving me fuming. That night, I reviewed old HOA documents from my filing cabinet. I found a reference to a proposed security program that never got approved. Karen's name was listed as an advocate. Residents had rejected a militarized presence, but she'd created her own version. A chill ran down my spine. If she could hijack a community, maybe she had friends in high places, making real trouble for me at the FBI. Days later, Alvarez called back. That plate belongs to a private security outfit. No license contract with your HOA, he said. They're acting without approval. Relief mixed with anger. This proves they're not real cops. I said. But how do I tie it to Karen? He hesitated. I can't dig deeper without an official complaint. So far, there isn't one. My frustration boiled. This is my complaint. They threatened me on my property. Alvarez sighed. I believe you, but I need statements from neighbors to back you up. Otherwise, it's your word against theirs. I realized Karen had cultivated fear. No one wanted to cross her, risking her suit cops. I was on my own unless I could build a solid case. At the FBI, a supervisor from Internal Affairs summoned me. She asked about my aggressive behavior with local authorities, citing a report full of half-truths. I stated my side, but she tapped her pen and said, "We're reviewing all angles." My chest tightened as I left. Even if I was truthful, the complaints made me look bad. Karen was winning, using fake citations to undermine my credibility. Tamara believed me, but was too scared to speak formally. Then, I found an envelope taped to my door with a fake HOA seal, claiming I violated Ordinance 301, demanding a fine or further measures. My patience snapped. I called Karen's number, leaving a furious voicemail to stop her harassment. An hour later, a blocked number called. "Don't threaten Karen again," a voice hissed. "We know your boss and can make your life difficult." The line went dead. Rage coiled in my gut. They were well connected, or wanted me to think so. Late that night, I peered out my window. Porch lights glimmered. A breeze rustled lawns. It looked like a perfect suburb, but I was trapped in Karen's game. I was no closer to proving her scam, and my FBI career was at risk. My phone chimed with an email from a colleague. Heads up, internal review might launch soon. Rumors are swirling. Another storm loomed, and I wondered what Karen's next move would be, and if I'd stand a chance. Even with the private security link, I lacked solid proof, tying Karen to the scheme or clearing my name. My only lead was Alvarez's plate trace. But without brave neighbors, I was on shaky ground. And Karen was ready to push me over the edge. Tension clung to my every move. The stress of FBI scrutiny intensified my fear of Karen's next strike. I felt eyes on me, from suspicious neighbors or the unmarked car at the corner. One afternoon, I headed to buy groceries, hoping to clear my head. As I pulled out, I saw a figure behind Karen's hedge. Possibly watching. A neighborhood felt like enemy territory, knotting my stomach. Halfway to the store, my phone buzzed with an unknown caller. I answered. A gravelly voice said, "Stop digging or else." The line went dead, leaving a chill in my chest. After shopping, I found a crumpled flyer under my wiper. HOA police volunteers needed, listing a meeting at Karen's address. She was recruiting, luring neighbors into her web with a membership fee for uniforms. I shuddered at her boldness. If people joined, she'd have a squad of bully enforcers. I snapped a photo of the flyer for evidence, then tore it up. As I walked up my steps, Karen's blinds moved slightly. She was watching, but I didn't care. I locked my door tight. Inside, I spread my notes on the dining table, building a timeline of her takeover. Warnings, fines, and bogus citations formed a pattern, chipping away at normal HOA processes until Karen controlled everything. She'd created confusion, then filled it with her made-up structure. The question was why, and who backed her. The voice on the phone wasn't a neighbor's. It had menace, suggesting real muscle and resources. That evening, I invited Tamara over to piece together what we knew. She brought an envelope of documents. I found old newsletters mentioning Karen taking over the events committee, she said, sitting at my table. We thought she just wanted to run block parties. Now I see bigger goals. I flipped through pages, shaking my head. She's been planning this for years, waiting for the right moment. Tamara's hands trembled as she pointed to a 6-month-old letter. Local security guidelines will be enforced for safety. It bore Karen's signature and a vague reference to third-party officials. Tamara placed her hand on mine. "Is any of this legal?" she asked, voice tight. I shook my head. "No, but nobody's stopping her. We shared a grim look. The real HOA board was silent or in hiding, and police wouldn't act without clear evidence. At the FBI, I was stuck behind internal reviews. The next day, I visited Alvarez at the station, my flyer and citations in a folder. My heart rattled, worried I was followed. At a stoplight, a black sedan with tinted windows lingered too long, raising suspicions. At the station, it turned down a side street. My pulse pounded. I'd been tailed. Alvarez ushered me into his cramped office. "Sorry for the mess," he said. "We're short on space." I laid the folder on his desk, explaining the calls, flyers, and Karen's push for fake officers. He whistled, glancing through pages. "This is bigger than I thought, but how do we pin it on Karen?" I leaned in. "Her name's on documents, and neighbors can testify. I'll gather statements." Alvarez frowned. "We need them in writing, signed, not scared off. Otherwise, it's hearsay." I sighed heavily. Neighbors were terrified of crossing Karen. I asked about the SUV plates. He checked his computer. Registered to a private security firm, tied to an out-of-state corporation. Could be a shell company, hard to trace. My shoulders sagged. A dead end. He nodded grimly. "I'll keep digging, but without a clear crime, we're stuck." I thanked him. Frustration mounting. My phone buzzed. A text from my boss. "Talk ASAP. Be here tomorrow." My mind spun with worst-case scenarios. Maybe the fake HOA filed another complaint, or Karen found a new way to sabotage me. That night, I barely slept, haunted by thoughts of Karen's next move. At 2 a.m., a car door slammed outside. I crept to the window. A figure stood by the curb, staring at my house. Not Karen, but taller, bulkier. They climbed into a vehicle and drove off, leaving me rattled. The next morning, I dragged myself to the FBI, bracing for my boss's words. He waited by his door, arms folded. "This is bad," he muttered, ushering me in. "I've got a dozen complaint forms," he said, dropping a file. "All from your neighborhood, accusing you of misconduct, threats, property damage." My mouth dried. Property damage? That's absurd. He rubbed his temples. "I know, but it's in writing, with addresses and signatures." My head spun. Karen had pressured neighbors to sign lies. Now my community was against me. He shook his head. "I believe it's a setup, but higher up see a pattern. This will escalate unless we find the truth soon." I fought anger. "Give me a chance to prove they're impersonators. They're not real authority." He nodded slowly. "All right, but we can't shield you forever. Internal affairs is on my neck." I thanked him, feeling desperate. Karen was strangling my career. She'd convinced neighbors to file false statements through fear or bribes. I was the lone target. Driving home, I felt drained. The fake cruiser was back outside my house. Lights off. I approached it, determined to confront them. A figure rolled down the window an inch, snarling, "Back off or you'll regret it." My heart hammered. The threat was clear, but so was my resolve. Karen's empire of fear had to fall, and I couldn't let her win. My job was on the line. My neighborhood hostile, but I needed proof Karen was the puppet master. The stakes were sky high, and I was heading into a confrontation that could cost everything. I drove to FBI headquarters, pulse pounding, bracing for the worst. My boss had mentioned an official inquiry into my alleged misconduct, and I was exhausted from weeks of harassment, false reports, and Karen's fake patrol. In the echoing lobby, colleagues gave me wary looks. News of my troubles had spread, and I felt like a marked man. A knot tightened in my chest. I steadied my breathing, reminding myself the truth was on my side. In the conference room, an unfamiliar agent led me to a long table where higher-ups sat, faces stern. My boss stood in the back, arms folded, looking grim. An older agent spoke. "We're here to discuss complaints against you, threats to neighborhood authorities, refusal to obey local laws." My heart raced. "Those authorities are fake," I said, keeping calm. "Their badges aren't real, and the HOA didn't approve them." A steely woman lifted a file. "We have statements from 10 neighbors saying otherwise. You bullied them." My blood boiled. "I have documents proving it's a setup. The HOA police are a private security firm with no legal standing." The panel exchanged guarded glances. Then the door opened, and Karen walked in, wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase. My jaw dropped. "What is she doing here?" I blurted. An agent cleared his throat. "Miss Garrett submitted evidence for the local enforcement group." My mind reeled. Karen was testifying against me in an FBI inquiry. She stepped forward, polished. "Good morning," she said. "I represent our community's interests. I'd like to correct misunderstandings." My boss shot me a stunned look. He hadn't warned me. Karen opened her briefcase, producing a folder. "These files show noise complaints, suspicious activity, and alleged break-ins linked to this agent's address." I bristled. "That's a lie," I snapped. She continued. "We asked him to cooperate with our volunteer police, but he refused, claiming we lacked authority." She sighed delicately. "We just want safe streets." I stared at the panel, struggling to stay level. Karen's lying. She's scaring neighbors into paying fake fines and threatening eviction. I've seen the forms. The steely woman raised a brow. "Do you have them here?" My heart sank. "Not physically, but I emailed them too." Karen shook her head, feigning disappointment. No record of that. Perhaps he's confused. My anger surged. She was prepared, painting me as a rogue agent. Then the twist hit. The older agent turned to Karen. We should disclose your family connection. She nodded curtly. Of course. She smiled at me pityingly. My uncle is the deputy director of this bureau. I tried to handle this quietly, but your behavior forced me to escalate. My stomach lurched. The deputy director was near the top. This explained her shut-down HOA lines, scared neighbors, and fast complaints. A panelist spoke. Given Miss Garrett's connection, we'll ensure impartiality, but these claims are serious. Agent, can you provide proof of criminal activity? My voice wavered. I have records of an unlicensed security firm and scared neighbors, but they won't come forward. Karen pressed her lips together. My family cares about law and order. We encourage safety. Her words dripped with insincerity. My vision swam. Her roots in the agency left me cornered. The meeting ended with a promise to investigate both me and Karen's group. I walked away feeling I'd lost ground. Karen beamed, murmuring, "Better watch your step." I clenched my jaw, resisting the urge to shout. My boss caught me in the hall. I had no idea about her uncle. He muttered, "This is a tight spot. You're not off the hook." I exhaled shakily. "I know." He gave a sympathetic look. "Stay calm. Gather evidence. We need more than hearsay." I left, reeling. Karen's uncle was a top FBI officer. She had connections I never imagined. If she could sway neighbors, what could she do with her uncle's power? My knees felt weak as I reached my car. Internal Affairs might not believe me now. I gripped the steering wheel, struggling not to panic. My badge felt heavy. Despite being FBI, I was fighting an enemy with the agency's leadership in her pocket. My only hope was exposing her scam undeniably. But with her ties and my reputation at risk, I might have to sacrifice my career to bring her down. I drove home from the inquiry, feeling the ground collapse beneath me. Karen's influence reached the FBI's top, and I was under a darker cloud. My boss tried to reassure me, but his voice lacked conviction. Pulling into my driveway, I scanned for the fake cruiser or tinted SUV. It was late, most houses lit, the road empty at first glance. I exhaled shakily, hoping for a normal night. But my phone buzzed with a text from Tamara. "They're at my door. I'm scared." My heart pounded. I rushed to her house on foot, sticking to shadows. The fake HOA officers were parked out front, engine running. Behind a hedge, I saw them pounding on her door. The taller one yelled, "Open up or it's another violation." My anger flared. They'd gone too far. I cleared my throat loudly. One officer turned, scowling. "You again," he muttered, grabbing his belt. I held my ground. "I'm FBI. This is intimidation. Leave her alone." The other officer reached for a phone. "That line won't save you. We have friends in high places." I nearly laughed at the irony. They admitted Karen's network. Tamara cracked the door, eyes wide with fear. "Please? Just go," she whispered, trembling. An officer whipped out a form. "Sign this, confirming your friends harassing the neighborhood." My pulse jumped. They wanted her to turn on me. Furious, I stepped forward. "Back off. She's signing nothing." The second officer shoved me. I stumbled onto the porch steps. Before I regained balance, the taller one pulled out zip ties, smirking nastily. "Be careful," he warned. "One wrong move, and we'll file assault charges." I kept my composure. Impersonating law enforcement is a federal crime. "I'll see you behind bars." He pointed a finger. "You won't get that chance." It sounded like a deeper threat. Suddenly a voice said, "What's going on?" I turned to see Alvarez, my police contact off-duty approaching. Relief swept over me. His badge was out. The fake officer stiffened. Alvarez addressed Tamara. "Ma'am, are these men trespassing?" She nodded, tears brimming. "Yes, they won't leave." Alvarez nodded to me. "Got your text about suspicious activity?" Took me a while to swing by. He faced the officers. "Show me identification." The taller one flashed his phony badge, but Alvarez didn't blink. "That's not official. Driver's license. Now, or you're coming in for questioning." They glanced at each other. One stammered, "We're authorized by the HOA." Alvarez crossed his arms. "You don't have the right to threaten homeowners on private property. Step away." He radioed for backup, making them pale. The taller one sneered at me before they hurried to their cruiser. Alvarez and I followed, but they drove off. He caught their plate number, muttering, "We'll see what we can do, but this might get tricky." Tamara thanked Alvarez, shaking. After he left to file a report, I helped her inside. She sank onto her couch. "They want me to blame you," she whispered, panicked. "They said they'd take me to court for HOA violations." I steadied her. "It's a bluff. Their paperwork's fake. We'll prove it." Doubt stung me. Karen had wormed into an FBI inquiry and coerced neighbors. Nothing was off limits. I stayed with Tamara, discussing next steps. She agreed to give Alvarez a formal statement, a potential breakthrough. Heading home, night had settled. Crickets chirped, porch lights glowed, but unease wrapped around me. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're out of time. Cooperate or lose everything." My chest tightened. They were bolder after the confrontation. I locked my door and sank onto the couch. Karen's hold was massive, backed by her uncle's FBI status. I needed evidence, even her ties couldn't dismiss. My mind churned with risky ideas. I drifted off, haunted by job suspension fears. Morning brought a slip in my mailbox. Meeting tonight at the community center. Be there, unsigned. It felt like Karen's trap, but curiosity and desperation pushed me. If she was holding a public gathering, I could catch her in the act. Maybe record her claims, but it might be a setup to humiliate me. I stared at the note, feeling the weight of my shaky job, powerless neighbors, and Karen's shadow army. Alvarez texted, "Need more witnesses to file charges. Press them." A flicker of hope. If the meeting was real, I could gather testimonies, expose the fake HOA police, and corner Karen before she destroyed me. Time was ticking, and she was drawing everyone to one place. Her biggest power play yet. I had to attend, even if it was a trap. Failure meant losing my job and home. That evening, I prepped for the community center meeting. Stomach knotted, I slipped a recorder into my jacket and grabbed my phone, set to record audio. I texted Alvarez my plans, in case things got rough. His reply, "Be careful, call if it gets ugly." I took a deep breath and headed out, mind buzzing with strategies. The community center was packed. Rows of chairs held most of the neighborhood. Murmuring, Karen stood at the front with papers, chatting with neighbors sporting new "We support the HOA" signs. A podium sat on a small stage, 2 fake HOA officers standing like bouncers. I took a back seat, blending in. Karen stepped to the podium, voice falsely cheery. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Our community faces challenges, disruptions, violations, safety issues. That's why I started our HOA police for a safe, orderly neighborhood." Some applauded, others glanced nervously. Tension simmered. Karen continued. "Unfortunately, some resist our standards." Her eyes flicked to me briefly. She gestured to the officers. "Our volunteers issued citations for noise, unkempt lawns, suspicious activities, keeping streets safe, preserving values." I couldn't stay silent. I stood. "That's a lie," I said loudly, heads turning. Karen's smile faltered. "Excuse me," she said, eyes narrowing. I stepped forward. "Your HOA police are illegitimate, part of an unlicensed private security group with no authority to fine or cite." "You're running a scam, Karen." Gasps rippled through the crowd. An officer moved toward me, but I held up my badge. "Federal agent. Touch me. You'll regret it." He hesitated, looking to Karen. I pushed on. "These goons are hired muscle." Karen's intimidating and extorting neighbors, demanding fake fines, threatening eviction. "It's illegal." Karen's face flushed. "You're bitter because you won't follow rules," she shot back. I pulled my phone, showing Alvarez's findings. "This proves your HOA police are unlicensed, with no HOA contract." The room buzzed with worried whispers. A man stood, shaken. "Karen, is that true? Are they not real security?" Karen stammered. "They're volunteers." I seized the moment. "Volunteers can't detain or fine, and you're making up infractions to extort neighbors." I pointed to her papers. "Let's see those citations. I bet they're fake." People moved forward, eager for answers. Karen's hands shook as she tried to hide the papers. A neighbor snatched a citation, holding it up. "This looks wrong. No seal, no signature." Karen's face paled. "That's confidential," she snapped. But damage was done. More demanded answers. Someone photographed the fake paperwork. Tension broke when an officer muttered, "I didn't sign up for this," and bolted. Alvarez appeared at the entrance, uniform crisp, expression serious. "Everyone stay calm," he announced. "We're investigating unauthorized security and possible extortion." Karen's face drained of color. She sputtered, "This is harassment. I have connections. You can't do this." No one backed her. Alvarez approached. "Ma'am, come with me for questioning." Karen tried to rally supporters, but her authority crumbled. Alvarez cuffed her and nodded to me. "Good work," he whispered. As Karen was let out, neighbors realized they'd been manipulated. Tamara approached, eyes shining. "You did it," she whispered. I gave a tight smile, adrenaline rushing. Neighbors apologized, admitting they'd felt trapped by Karen's rules. I nodded, drained but grateful. The truth emerged. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Statements, paperwork, an HOA audit confirming Karen pocketed fine money. Her uncle, the deputy director, denied knowledge, but scrutiny led to his quiet resignation. The fake HOA police vanished, their security firm facing legal action. Weeks later, my boss called me in. He gave a rare smile. "You were right," he said. "Internal affairs cleared you. Karen's actions were illegal, and neighbors apologized for pressured complaints. You're back on track." Relief washed over me. I'd saved my career and reputation despite Karen's sabotage. Walking out, I exhaled deeply, tension breaking. My neighborhood was just that. Again, no fake cops, no phony citations, just curious glances from people processing Karen's near. I smiled. I survived the storm and brought down the woman who thought she could rule a quiet suburb into her personal kingdom.